If you're watching this, you're not safe. America has already collapsed, and you're living in the wreckage. Not tomorrow, not 10 years from now, right now. Over 60% of Americans can't afford a $500 emergency. Over 2.5 million people live in their cars, while 11 million homes sit empty. Credit card debt just passed $113 trillion, the highest in U.S. history. 44 million people are food insecure, and over 111,000 died of overdoses last year. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for Americans under 40. This isn't a recession. This is a silent Great Depression, camouflaged with streaming apps, side hustles, and buy now, pay later. And here's the worst part. No one's coming to save you. The government isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed, to protect wealth and punish survival. You feel like you're drowning because you are. And the system was built to keep your head just below the surface. This isn't a warning. This is the obituary of the American dream. And you're in it. The education system is no longer a ladder. It's a trapdoor. You ever notice how no one talks about the American dream coming through a diploma anymore? That's because the dream got foreclosed. In 2025, education in the U.S. has become the most polite form of economic entrapment, a system that convinces kids to take on six-figure loans before they've even had their first full-time job. The average student loan debt now sits at $39,981, but that's just the tip. Many young adults owe over $100,000. And for what? A degree that leads to a 16-hour internship or an unpaid opportunity in a saturated job market. You think this is education? It's financial hazing. Universities have become hedge funds with lecture halls, hoarding billion-dollar endowments while hiking tuition faster than inflation. Since 2000, the cost of college has soared by over 180%, while wages have remained nearly flat. Public colleges? They're not public anymore. They're debt machines. And private universities? They're luxury brands selling prestige at interest. Worse, most of the education isn't even aligned with the job market. You graduate in marketing and end up doing tech support. You study biology and wind up in food service. Nearly 41% of recent grads are underemployed, working jobs that didn't require a degree at all. That's not bad luck. That's systemic failure. And as wages stay stagnant, loan interest compounds, creating a generation that owes more than they'll ever own. And God forbid you default. The federal government will garnish your wages, seize your tax refunds, and wreck your credit for decades. You can't discharge it in bankruptcy. This isn't education, it's indentured servitude with a graduation cap. And as more students realize the scam, enrollment is plummeting. But don't expect reform. The student debt market is worth $1.7 trillion. That's a revenue stream, a profit center, not a crisis. The result? A generation that doesn't buy homes, doesn't start families, and doesn't believe the future is even theirs to hope for. Education was supposed to be the great equalizer. Instead, it's the new caste system, where your diploma is your debt sentence. Food deserts are expanding, and they're killing people quietly. Americans are going hungry, and not just in the way politicians describe. We're not talking about some charity infomercial hunger with a violin soundtrack. We're talking about working people skipping meals, eating dollar menu poison, and calling it dinner. And it's everywhere. As of 2025, over 44 million Americans are food insecure. That's 1 in every 8 people, including 13 million children. But that stat doesn't even scratch the surface. You want to know the real horror? Food deserts. Entire neighborhoods where it's easier to buy fentanyl than fresh spinach. According to USDA data, more than 17.6 million people live in these deserts. Places where full-service grocery stores simply don't exist. You want produce? You better drive 10 miles and pay $6 for gas. Otherwise, it's gas station snacks and expired boxed meals. And you wonder why diabetes, heart disease, and cancer are killing Americans at record rates. It's not bad genetics. It's bad geography. You think this is accidental? This is engineered neglect. Grocery chains pull out of poor neighborhoods the moment profits drop below expectations. But you know who moves in? Fast food, payday lenders, and liquor stores. A 2024 study out of Johns Hopkins found that low-income zip codes have 10 times more fast food restaurants than affluent ones. Why? Because it's cheap to poison the poor. Meanwhile, food prices are at historic highs. Eggs are $5. A box of cereal is $7. Try feeding a family of 4 on minimum wage and watch how quickly ramen becomes a lifestyle. And don't even talk about EBT. It's capped, stigmatized, and constantly under threat. There are Americans right now rationing bread while billionaires sip $400 smoothies. And the kicker? Food banks are collapsing under demand. Lines stretch for blocks. Supplies run out in hours. This isn't charity anymore. It's triage. You want to know what a failed state looks like? It looks like a nation that grows enough food to feed the world, but can't feed its own people. The collapse of infrastructure is turning U.S. cities into danger zones. Most people still think infrastructure means roads and bridges, but in 2025 it means whether you can flush your toilet without a backup. It means whether your tap water has lead, whether the next blackout lasts for hours or weeks. Because across America, the physical foundation of daily life is falling apart. More than 43% of roads are rated poor or mediocre. Over 46,000 bridges are structurally deficient. Cities like Jackson, Mississippi have gone weeks without clean drinking water. And that's not a rare case anymore. It's a blueprint. In places like Flint, Michigan, the water crisis never actually ended. It just fell off the headlines. Over 10 million homes still have lead pipes, quietly poisoning children in safe neighborhoods. But it's not just water. It's electricity. The U.S. power grid, built for the 1960s, is buckling under modern demand. Blackouts affected more than 25 million people last year alone, and grid failures are now expected annually. You think it's hot now? Wait until the AC cuts out during the next 110-degree heat wave. People will die, and they already have. In Texas, hundreds perished during Winter Storm Uri because deregulated grids couldn't handle cold. Meanwhile, we funnel billions into foreign wars and leave American cities looking like abandoned war zones. Sewer systems are over 100 years old in many places. Storm drains overflow with every minor flood. Streets crack like desert floor. And while billion-dollar condos rise in coastal skylines, neighborhoods 20 blocks away can't get a pothole filled. Infrastructure failure doesn't just inconvenience, it kills. Poor drainage breeds mosquitoes and disease. Broken lights increase crime. Bridge collapses. We've had over 600 partial failures since 2015. But fixing it, that's not profitable. So we let it rot. Infrastructure is supposed to be the circulatory system of a nation. But in the U.S., it's become a slow-bleeding wound. And just like with healthcare and housing, we've created a tiered system, one where the wealthy have self-sustaining islands of comfort while everyone else drowns in their own sewage. The American foundation is crumbling, and nobody's holding the beam. Crime isn't rising, desperation is. What you're seeing on the streets isn't just rising crime, it's rising desperation. Every headline screaming about theft, shoplifting, or carjackings is a symptom, not a cause. The economy didn't just break, it turned people into liabilities, then punished them for surviving. In 2025, over 20 million Americans report stealing food or essential goods in the past year. Not because they're criminals, but because the alternative is hunger, eviction, or death. Nearly 74% of those caught shoplifting in major cities last year were stealing hygiene products, baby formula, or medicine. That's not crime, that's triage. And the system knows it. Corporations quietly write off millions in loss as the cost of doing business while pushing propaganda that it's all due to moral decay. But let's follow the money. The same stores complaining about theft just posted record profits. Walmart, Target, and CVS aren't dying. They're evolving. They're installing facial recognition cameras, locking up toothpaste behind bulletproof plastic, and cutting staff while blaming customers. And police? They've stopped responding. In cities like San Francisco and New Orleans, response times for nonviolent crimes have ballooned past 2 hours, if they show up at all. Not because they don't care, but because there's too much. Too many calls, too few officers, too little faith in the law. So people turn inward. Neighborhoods create informal security squads. Stores hire private guards with AR-15s. And we pretend this is normal. But it's not. It's the breakdown of civil order. Meanwhile, white-collar crime, the stuff that caused the 2008 crash, the housing collapse, the student debt balloon, remains untouched. Wall Street rigs entire markets, but no one goes to jail. A single mom steals diapers and gets 90 days. This is how the empire masks collapse. It criminalizes the poor while absolving the powerful. Every petty theft is a headline. Every billion-dollar scam is a press release. Crime statistics don't tell the real story, but desperation? It's everywhere. You don't need numbers to see it. Just step outside. Poverty is the real looter, and the system is its getaway driver. Mental health isn't a crisis. It's a casualty of capitalism. You've heard it framed as a mental health crisis, but what they won't say is this: it's not a crisis. It's a casualty, a direct byproduct of an economy that eats people alive and calls it ambition. In 2025, over 55 million Americans suffer from mental illness. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, diagnoses are exploding, but access to care isn't. Why? Because therapy costs $150 per session, psychiatric meds run hundreds a month, and over 60% of counties in the U.S. have zero practicing psychiatrists. Let that sink in. Zero. The richest nation on earth can't even offer someone to talk to. But it gets worse. Even those with insurance discover that mental health coverage is a cruel joke. Long wait lists, session limits, out-of-pocket deductibles that might as well be skyscrapers. You need help now, but the system tells you to hang tight. Maybe 3 months, maybe 6. And in that time, people spiral. They isolate. They self-medicate. They die. Suicide is now a leading cause of death for Americans under 40, and overdose deaths have reached over 111,000 annually, fueled by despair, poverty, and fentanyl. And for what? Because they couldn't afford to feel okay? This isn't individual failure. This is structural violence. Social media peddles toxic positivity and side hustle culture while everyone silently breaks down behind the scenes. You're supposed to grind harder while your nervous system collapses. You're told to be grateful while your rent eats half your income. You're shamed for struggling, and if you reach out, you're labeled broken. But this system was built to break people. Mental health disorders are up 41% since 2019, and you know why? Because the math of survival no longer adds up. People weren't meant to live in constant uncertainty, debt, fear of eviction, and fear of medical bills. The trauma isn't theoretical anymore, it's economic. And when every part of life becomes unstable, the mind follows. So no, this isn't a mental health crisis. It's the predictable outcome of a country where rest is a privilege and peace of mind is something you finance. You're not crazy for feeling hopeless. You're awake. The middle class is extinct, but no one held the funeral. The middle class is dead, extinct, gone. And we never even had the decency to hold a funeral. Instead, we parade around the corpse, pretending it still exists. But in 2025, there is no middle. Just people clinging to the illusion of stability while drowning in debt. You want proof? The numbers don't lie. In 1971, 61% of Americans were considered middle class. Today, it's less than 42% and shrinking every year. What's replaced it? A new caste system where the top 10% own 70% of all wealth and the bottom half own just 2.5%. That's not a curve, that's a cliff. And what used to define the middle class, home ownership, healthcare, college for your kids, retirement savings, those are luxury goods now. Nearly 63% of Americans can't afford an unexpected $500 expense. Half have no retirement savings. Over 100 million Americans are either underinsured or not insured at all. These aren't minor hiccups. This is structural collapse. And yet the myth persists. Politicians still preach about reviving the middle class, as if it's asleep, not 6 feet under. But the truth is, middle-class life has been monetized, sold off, and redistributed upwards. Every paycheck you earn is already spoken for by rent, debt, premiums, and taxes that fund corporate bailouts. You're not working for freedom, you're working to keep creditors quiet. And when the margin of error is zero, you're not middle class, you're precarious. A missed shift, a broken car, a hospital visit, and suddenly you're applying for food stamps, living in your cousin's basement, Googling how to file bankruptcy. The American dream wasn't murdered in the night. It was eroded over decades, outsourced, deregulated, automated, and privatized into dust. But here's the worst part. We blame ourselves. We internalize the failure. If I just worked harder? If I just budgeted better? No. The system was rigged before you even clocked in. The middle class isn't struggling. It's vanished. And if we don't start telling the truth about that, we'll be buried next to it. Savings accounts are a fantasy. Debt is the default setting. You remember when savings were a thing? Like your parents had a little rainy day fund, maybe even a Christmas envelope tucked away? In 2025, that's pure fiction. The savings account has become a museum artifact, something that belonged to a different species, a different country, a different economy. Right now, over 78% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck, and that includes households making up to $100,000 a year. That's not poverty. That's middle-class people dangling over the edge of financial ruin, and when savings evaporate, debt steps in like a smiling executioner. Credit card debt just hit an all-time high of $113 trillion, and it's not from people buying vacations or new TVs. It's gas, it's groceries, it's childcare. The basic costs of staying alive. The average American household now carries $6,360 in credit card debt, with interest rates pushing past 24%. That's loan shark territory. And the system profits from it. Banks post record earnings while average Americans pay $150, $300 a month just in interest, not even touching the principal. Meanwhile, student loans have resumed. Medical debt remains the #1 cause of bankruptcy, and buy now, pay later apps have replaced emergency funds. If you're lucky, you can float one bill with another, transferring balances like sandbags on a sinking ship. And if you default, good luck. Your credit score tanks, your car insurance spikes, you're locked out of housing, jobs, and even some utilities. That's how the system keeps you obedient. Not through fear, but through credit scores. And here's the kicker. The average American now owes more than they earn in a year. That's not just a red flag. That's a structural death spiral. Debt has become the national language. Savings is now a rich person's word. We've built an economy where future prosperity is collateralized monthly at interest. And the worst part? They still tell you to just save more, while charging $5 for a gallon of milk and $18 for a burger. The reality is simple. There is no saving your way out of a system designed to drain you. There's only drowning slower, or deciding to tear the whole damn thing down. The gig economy is a lie. It's a rebrand of exploitation. You've been told it's flexible, that it's empowering, that the gig economy is the future of work. But that's a lie. A slick Silicon Valley PR campaign wrapped around digital age poverty wages. Let's call it what it really is. Exploitation with an app interface. In 2025, over 36% of US workers are part of the gig economy. Uber drivers, DoorDash couriers, Instacart shoppers, TaskRabbit freelancers. But here's what they don't tell you in the commercials. Most gig workers make less than 12 hours after expenses. There's no healthcare, no paid time off, no retirement, and no safety net. You don't get unemployment when the algorithm deactivates you. You don't get sick days when your car breaks down. And you sure as hell don't get respect. You're a disposable input. That's it. Apps like Uber and Lyft used to offer bonuses, surge pricing, real income. Now, they slice the payouts thinner every quarter while pumping out propaganda about freedom. But freedom to what? Starve? Work 70 hours a week to barely make rent? Ride through dangerous neighborhoods with no backup? You're not a contractor. You're not a small business owner. You're a worker with no rights, forced to smile through a 5-star rating system just to stay alive. And it's not just rideshare and delivery. Even so-called skilled platforms like Upwork and Fiverr are flooded with desperate workers underbidding each other into oblivion. You're competing with an algorithm, a robot, and a teenager in another country, simultaneously. Meanwhile, the platforms themselves rake in billions. Uber reported $37 billion in revenue last year. The average driver struggled to cover gas. That's not a tech revolution. That's the old sweatshop model, dressed in software and VC money, and it's expanding. Corporations are offloading risk onto individuals, turning once stable jobs into unstable contracts. The gig economy wasn't designed to supplement income. It was engineered to replace employment. Cheap labor, zero liability, total control. You call it hustle culture, but deep down, you know what it is. It's wage theft at scale. It's working without protections. It's running on fumes. The gig economy doesn't give you freedom. It just frees your employer from having to care if you live or die. The cost of simply existing has become unsustainable. Just staying alive in America now costs more than most people earn. You don't have to thrive. You don't have to succeed. You don't have to live in a nice apartment, drive a new car, or ever take a vacation. No, just existing. Food, shelter, healthcare, utilities is enough to financially destroy you. The average monthly cost of living for a single adult in 2025, according to MIT's updated living wage calculator, is $3,900 per month. That's nearly $47,000 a year. After taxes, you'd need to earn over $65,000 annually just to tread water. And that's assuming you're single with no kids. Add a child, you're looking at $76,110,000 $10,000 depending on your city. But the median full-time wage is $57,200. That's not math. That's a trap. Rent now eats 40–60% of take-home pay. Groceries have surged 21% in 3 years. Gas, car insurance, utilities, internet, phone bills, every single necessity has inflated beyond control. People aren't making poor choices. They're being priced out of life. And you know who's profiting? Everyone at the top. Corporate profits hit $2.8 trillion last year. CEO pay rose another 17%. While everyday Americans were raiding their 401ks, selling plasma, or skipping meals to pay rent, executives were pocketing record bonuses for cost-cutting. That's code for underpaying you. That's code for laying off your team. In a functional society, wages rise with productivity and cost of living. In America, productivity is up 62% since the 1970s, but wages are flat. That gap, it didn't vanish. It was siphoned into stock buybacks, dividends, and offshore accounts. And now even the illusion is gone. You can't budget your way out. You can't coupon your way to safety. The system has priced life itself as a luxury item. We're not just broke, we're being broken one bill at a time. When the act of surviving becomes unsustainable, collapse isn't a question, it's a calendar. Democracy has been replaced by a corporate algorithm in a suit. We were raised to believe that America was a democracy, that voting mattered, that your voice counted. But in 2025, that idea is a ghost, an ancient echo buried beneath billions of dollars in corporate lobbying, data harvesting, and political theater. What we have now isn't democracy. It's a corporate algorithm in a suit, calculating profit margins on your suffering and writing laws to make sure it never stops. This is the real endgame of Great Depression 2.0. A system where citizens are consumers, votes are transactions, and policy is auctioned off to the highest bidder. Think that's hyperbole? Look at the receipts. Last election cycle, over $16.7 billion was spent on campaigns, mostly by super PACs and corporate donors. That's not democracy. That's legalized bribery. Nearly 95% of congressional races are won by the candidate who raises the most money. You're not electing a representative. You're choosing which corporate-backed puppet will sign the dotted line. And what's worse, you don't even see it happening. Lobbyists now outnumber Congress members by a ratio of 23-1. Every bill, every regulation, every loophole was written by someone in a boardroom with a spreadsheet, then handed to your elected official to rubber stamp. You thought you were voting for healthcare reform? You got an insurance company subsidy? You thought you were voting for affordable housing? You got tax breaks for real estate developers? The real decisions aren't made in Washington. They're made on Wall Street, K Street, and behind closed doors in think tanks funded by billionaires. But here's the kicker. Technology finished what money started. The algorithm knows you better than you know yourself. Your data, your location, your spending, your fears is used to manipulate your beliefs, nudge your behaviors, and fracture your community. Social media platforms, funded by the same corporations who own your politicians, have become the new voting booths, but the only ones casting ballots are A/B tests and predictive models. You're not just governed, you're programmed. And if you think your outrage still matters, ask yourself this. When was the last time your government did something the public actually wanted? Over 72% of Americans support universal health care, denied. Over 80% support limiting corporate money in politics, ignored. You can protest, you can vote. But the results were preloaded long before you showed up. Democracy didn't die with a bang. It was bought, monetized, and quietly repackaged into a brand. The flag still waves, the anthem still plays, but behind the curtain, it's all code and capital now. And that's the scariest part of all, because a rigged game that still pretends to be fair is harder to fight than open tyranny. At least with a king, you know who your enemy is. Today, it's a faceless system with no address and no soul, extracting your labor, taxing your hope, and selling your future like stock. We were promised freedom. What we got was a shopping cart, a debt ledger, and a screen telling us we're still in control. But you're not yet, and they know it.